Good morning to all my friends and family, and welcome to this episode of Jim's 5am Club. I'm up here at Shoal Bay at the moment, and as you can see, it's been storming the past couple of days, but the rain has briefly stopped, so I thought I'd come down to the beach and go through a book summary, deliver another 5am Club. So thank you to all and sundry who have joined me on this journey over the past year. It's been a lot of fun, and hopefully we've learnt a thing or two along the way. What I want to do today is take you through a book entitled 13 Things Mentally Strong Parents Don't Do by an author named Amy Morin. And it's a real eye-opener, an awesome book which will take us on a bit of a journey. So let me just head off on the other side and stay out of the water, the lapping water. And we've had a brief stop in the rain, which is great. So let's see where this book summary takes us, because we're all parents, we're all grandparents, and we're all caring for somebody or somebody's children at various points in time. So it would be very, very good, where possible, to be the best possible influence on those little minds and those little hearts. So the author kicks off the book with a quote where she says that learning how to manage emotions and endure unpleasant feelings are skills that can be taught. So what we're saying here is that a lot of the skills that children need later on in life as adults can actually be taught from the very, very first years. And it's up to parents, grandparents, caretakers, caregivers, teachers, even siblings, uncles and aunts, to help pass on these skills to the children that surround us. So the author then acknowledges, like we all do, that everybody wants the best for their children, but in the same sentence also reminds us, but these days parenting is more a problem of doing too much than too little. So basically we've come the full cycle, where the pendulum has swung from one end of the spectrum to the other, and instead of doing too little, which previous generations may have been guilty of, we're actually guilty these days of doing far too much. And I remember growing up how the catch cry was always, don't spoil the children, don't spoil them. And I always used to wonder what that meant. But this author aptly and succinctly and eloquently captures it in her work. So the call to action from this author is that we should be very, very cautious as parents to not over-parent, to avoid helicopter parenting at all costs. Because what a lot of people don't understand, and there's a couple of eagles up there, a couple of sea eagles soaring in the sky above us. What the author reminds us here is that over-parenting, over-protecting children builds people, builds adults, builds the next generation of adults who are simply incapable of handling life's challenges on their own, and they spend their life being victims and entitleists. Not only being victims, but also claiming that they are entitled to something better, even though they don't deserve it. So the author suggests here that it's important for each and every one of us to know the habits not to teach our children. So there are things that we should be encouraging our children in and with, but there are also habits that we should be steering clear of and not instilling in our children. Because by avoiding these behaviours, we're avoiding their own detrimental behaviours and things that will lead to self-sabotage and unhappiness and pain, suffering in their adulthood. And we see it time and time again. Now you see some people, and I'm not meaning to be judgmental, but I've also noticed it in myself as well, that we have some habits which we've carried on from childhood, which impact us and are a disadvantage to us as we grow older, and they're harder to shake because they're embedded in our in the way we act and the way we behave, and it's hard to shake, as I said, because they're now part of our DNA and part of our identity. And once they get to that sort of point, people are very, very reluctant to let go. So the first formal point to come out of this wonderful book, I love books on parenting, because you're never too old to be a parent or to reparent. And even though my children are 30 years of age now, as I said, I can still learn, and hopefully I can still try to incorporate a lot of these lessons into my parenting style, which evolves over the years. The first point that the author makes, and I'm glad that the rain has stopped, but those clouds up there look menacing. The first formal point that the author makes here is that it's important to help your child be responsible and learn how to persevere rather than be a victim. So learn how to stick to things, learn how to persevere, and learn how to cope rather than to throw up their hands and blame the world, blame their parents, and hate everyone around them, and just continue to whinge and moan and whine. I did a book summary yesterday or the day before, which was the battle cry of a tiger mother. And once again, that was another beautiful book. So plenty of lessons on parenting. And this book here goes on to say that kids learn best through example. We all know that. And but it's good to reinforce it. It's good to reinforce it, to understand it, and to capture it again. So monkey see, monkey do, and children will learn a lot more through observing you as a parent, as an uncle, as an aunt, as a grandparent, than what you could ever hope to teach them through just instruction alone. So don't encourage victim mentality is the first key point. So be very, very careful, be very, very cautious with how you describe things, how you position things, and how you talk yourself about things. Because what you say, what you do, is critical for their little minds. And if you're carrying on like a victim, blaming others and expecting more without doing more, then what you're doing is you're teaching those little people who are coming before you, the people who are going to be tomorrow's leaders, basically, who are one day going to be leading their children and their grandchildren and their families. What you're teaching them is you're teaching them from a very, very young age that it's okay to be a victim. It's okay to be entitled. So show them how to deal with problems rather than complain about mistakes that others have caused is the key lesson. So, and the other thing that we should be looking at, and here's the eagle above me now, is to not where possible, teach them learned helplessness. Teach them how to be helpful, how to help themselves. I don't know if you were watching yesterday's video, but I talked about the 3 eagles up there at Mount Torameri, and today here we've got 3 eagles soaring. So we've got 1 here and 2 eagles over there. So the 3 eagles must be residents of this particular part of Port Stephens, and it's beautiful, absolutely beautiful to see them. And whilst I'm on the topic of eagles, and we're talking about children and parenting, I remember years ago, a friend of mine, Bill Maywis, told me about a book that he'd read. And he said that in order for an eagle to soar high, to be free, independent, and powerful, the eaglet needed to be pushed out of the nest by its mother in order to take flight, to take wing. And by taking wing, it would learn how to soar and be majestic, just like that eagle up there. So the author here once again reminds us, give them a bit of a nudge, give them a bit of a push, and allow them to soar above the problems, above the challenges, and to deal with them one by one by stepping back and also using their razor focus to get to the solutions that they need in a practical and purposeful way. So the way you teach children responsibility, response-ableness, in other words, being able to respond, being able to do things, is to bite your tongue and step back and don't intervene in their lives too much and in their problems. Allow them to sort their problems out themselves. I know it's tempting to try and, tie up our grandchildren's shoes and to put their shoes on and to dress them and to, do all those sorts of things. But the author is saying here is that there comes a point where if you're doing it all the time, guess what? They expect you to do it for them all the time, and they don't gain their independence, they don't gain the skills, the strengths, and the will to be independent. And what you don't want to do is you don't want children to grow up to be adults and to be dependent, because that in itself has its issues, especially when they get married, when they start working, when they take on their own persona, their own lives. You don't want them to depend on their partner. You don't want them to depend on the gang that they come across. You don't want them to depend on substances, alcohol, nicotine. You want them to be strong-minded, strong-willed, and independent for a certain part of their life. And then, of course, you want them to learn interdependence later on, where they can give and take and be part of a community. But first, you need to learn independence before that you can learn to become interdependent, as Steve Covey reminds us in his beautiful books. The second key message to come from this text, and I'll just go up there on the jetty just to continue the 5 a.m. club, just to add a bit of spice, add a bit of difference to the atmosphere and to the view. The second point to come out of this book is to be very careful not to expect perfection, because what happens is if your children or if people come up expecting or be brought up expecting perfection, they quickly get demoralised because they can't achieve what they want to achieve, and they just give up. So don't expect perfection. And don't step in every time they mess up. So once again, very, very powerful messages coming from this author. Let me just get up here. That's beautiful, there you go. And I'll go out. There you go, got the eagles above us again, just soaring beautifully in those dark black clouds. So don't step in is the key message from the author. Stand back and allow them to sort out their own problems, because too much intervention will disempower them. So, and this is a point here that a lot of people don't get, sadly, especially us Greeks. We've got to understand that our children are not an extension of ourselves. Our children are not an accessory that you can show off and bandy around. Our children are people who have their own personhood, who have their own life to live, who have their own gifts, their own skills, all of those things. And as parents, all we are stewards who have them for part of their journey, and our job is to prepare them for life's challenges, because everybody's going to have ups and downs, and everybody can deal with the ups. Everybody can enjoy and deal with the beauty of the ups in life. But it's the people who can deal with the downs are the ones who are going to survive and thrive. So the message from this author here is that we need to a certain extent, prepare our children for those tough times that are going to most definitely come in their lives, as all of us have had our tough times in our lives, and we'll see more tough times. So the author here says that we need to understand that they are not an extension of our lives. We don't own them, we don't possess them. We just have the gift of time that we can share with them for part of their lives, and we need to, once again, like the eagles do, give them a nudge to get them to live their lives. So, to understand that we need to push them to a certain extent, but not to push them for perfection, which is a little bit contrary and a little bit different to what the other book was that I was saying the other day, the battle cry of the tiger mother. Because what they're saying here is that if you're pushing children to perfection all the time, then what they learn is that your love is conditional. But what's more important, according to this author, is to encourage children to achieve excellence. And excellence means just improving on themselves, improving on their previous performances, and by encouraging them to move towards excellence, it's a better outcome than trying to encourage them to be perfect, because nobody's perfect, and it just causes those traumatic psychological issues. So don't criticise only. There are so many parents, and we've all been guilty of this, that criticise this, criticise that, and if you're brought up in an environment of criticism, as we said, that can be very, very damaging for children. So the author says that you may want to consider doing buffeting at the moment. What we should try and consider in terms of a technique is to praise, criticise and praise. It's the praise, criticise, praise, which means start off your conversation with your child with something good, then identify something that they can improve, and finish off with another bit of praise. So you start with praise, offer some advice in terms of how to improve, and then finish off with some praise. But whatever you do, don't micromanage your children and don't overstep your mark is the key message from this author. And the last point to come out of this book is that mentally strong parents only do things that match the values that they teach. So it's all about teaching values to children. And each family has its values. And it's important to capture those values and to articulate those values and to pass them on to children. So we need to be careful in terms of what we're prizing is the author's key message, because what you say, what you do speaks volumes, and children will focus on the things that you prize. So be careful with what you prize. It's more important to prize effort, honesty, planning, and values rather than outcomes. There's no use prizing goal scoring, for example. What's more important, I think, from what the author is saying, is that you teach your children to prize training, to prize effort, planning, and all the other things that go into preparing somebody to be good at something, rather than the output or the outcome. And the author says here's something really interesting, something that I'd never considered before in my life. It's a bit late for me now, but for young parents or for new families, something to consider. And that is one thing that would really help children growing up and being brought up in a balanced sort of fashion is to incorporate and to jointly develop a thing called a family mission statement, where the family sits down together as a team and figures out what's important to them as a family, what values they have, what values they want to live up to. And these things, according to the author, are a really valuable thing to do. Whereas we need to try and emphasise as much as possible, as I said before, our values. But one of the key values that the author suggests is to emphasise the importance of kindness. Show how what we do makes the world a better place. So thank you very much once again for joining me on this episode, this interesting episode of Jim's 5am Club. As I said before, we're up here at Nelson Bay. I'm up here at Shoal Bay at the moment. It's a bit blustery, it's a bit windy, it's been raining all night. But we're here. So let's finish off with a positive affirmation. I'm alive, I am well, I feel absolutely great. To my friends and family, stay connected, stay relevant, stay reasonable. Looks like the rain's coming back, so I better get up to the car, or go and grab a hot chocolate before I get in the car. And I look forward to coming to you again from a different location with a different message, a message of empowerment, where we can be the gentle wind beneath our wings, where we can learn something new, learn a life hack to get us through the day, get us through the weekend, so that we can live, learn and pass it on. Thank you. Thank you once again for joining me on this program, on this project, where we can hopefully learn something new. We can incorporate these life hacks into our lives and to help ourselves, help our children and be partners in each other's development. So Yassas, take care, Filakia, from Jim's 5am Club, and we'll chat again. Take care. Out in the open here. How beautiful. How beautiful is this part of the world. I absolutely love it. It's my bolt hole. Take care. Bye for now. Ciao.